Okay, I think everybody. Good morning. All right, just getting settled in here. Just came back from a walk. How about you guys? Did y'all walk this morning? All right, I'm going to turn my chat box on just to make sure I'm not talking to myself. So as soon as I get my chat box on, just let me know if you can hear me or not. Chat box is on. All right, put it in the chat box. I got it up there now. And let me know if you can hear me, okay? Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up or say, yes, we can hear you. Thank you. All right. All right, everybody. How's everybody doing in the chat box? We start off so I can see how you guys are doing. I had a very interesting week this week. I saw a lot of patients and they were telling me what they were doing. A lot of them, a lot of them thought that I was charging for this webinar. And we don't. Only the folks that have to have this as a requirement to have surgery do they have to pay the copay. But otherwise, this is totally free. All right. The only thing I do is basically take my mornings, go ahead and do my exercise, and then come talk to you guys. How's that? All right. All right. So as we get started, I'm going to let a few people in, and then I'm going to go ahead and get started. So because I'm going to try to make this short so you can get out and get your exercise. How many of you all have exercised this morning? Everybody's feeling good. They have a good morning. Everybody's feeling great, blessed, and highly favored. Me too. All right. How many of y'all exercised this morning? Crickets. Uh-oh. Okay. Somebody. Okay, very good. You're at work. It's all right. You don't have to exercise while you're at work. They're going to look at you funny. All right. So we'll basically kind of give you a pass. I'm going in a little while. All right. I'm going when I get off. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my slides with you. So because again, what we're going to do today is maybe start out with some questions or either give you a little presentation and then give you some questions. But what we're trying to do today is to make sure that you all have a blueprint as to what it is to do. And I'm going to kind of throw some commentary in there, throw some things in there that I want you all to know that I know that maybe your doctors hadn't told you. Because again, what I want to make sure that you all understand that getting healthy is an arduous task, but it can be fun along the way. And as we continue to get healthy, as we get older, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to feel a whole lot better. Like I tell you every week, I feel a whole lot better in my decade of life that I'm in now than I did in my early 50s. Okay. I hope that you guys are able to do that as well. All right. Let me go ahead and share my slides. If I'm glad. But the one thing about getting older is that you got to have these little things, these little reader glasses. It says somebody says my voice is echoing. Let's see, how is that happening? Let's see, join audio here. Join audio here. Everybody here at echo? Everybody here at echo? Let's see. Anybody else here in echo? Because I'm not exactly sure. Because I do have another device on my iPad, and sometimes when I have that audio on, I'll echo, but I don't hear the echo. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So other people aren't hearing the echo either. So I'm going to continue on. Don't turn me off if you hear the echo, but I'm going to share the slides here. All righty. If I can, I'm just going to share my screen first of all. Then I'll go down to the slides. Found them. All right. All right. So here we go. On my screen, I can see other things that you all can't see. So I got to move it out of the way in order for me to see the screen. So what we're going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about, let's see. All right, life's not just about living longer, is it? Life's not just about living longer. It's about living healthier. longer. And that's our goal. That's what we want to do, right? So this is an acronym that is the basis of this program. All right. All right. So it's fasting, fiber, pulse, and protein, pulse, protein, and fitness. Let me take let me take that because it's not easy to remember when you put pulse protein. It should be the way this should be, the way the program goes is that I want you to fast for a certain number of hours. We're going to talk about the importance of fasting because a lot of people forget that. And I sometimes will forget to re-emphasize it, but it is the basis of one of the bases, one of the four pillars. These are the four pillars of this program. It's to fast. And because autophagy depends upon your body not taking any food. Autophagy cleans out the cells of your body. You have to have autophagy, all right? Because if you just diet and then just taking some protein and all, and you're forgetting about autophagy, you're just kind of you're in one of those little hamster things where you're just kind of chasing your wheel. You've got to get rid of the folded proteins, the junk in your cells first to make room for new mitochondria, new cells, new things that are going to grow and help you along. Plus, plus autophagy allows you to burn fat. So autophagy does those two things. Autophagy allows you to burn fat, which is what we're here about. Okay. Even the people who are healthy, like who are here, we need to burn some fat, right? Because some of the fat is around our heart. We may not be fat on the outside, but some of us are fat on the inside. And the fat on the inside, unfortunately, is a worse type of fat. So you got fat around your pancreas, fat around your liver, fat around your heart, and then that's a dangerous fat. So we've got to get rid of the fat. So burning the fat is what we're here for, okay? So autophagy has to be incited, all right? And the only way we're going to do that is number one, fasting, okay? Now I got fiber is number two, but I'm going to change it around because I'm trying to give you a sequence of what I want you to do, all right? So I'm going to change after the fasting. What are the first thing we're going to do after the fasting? Fitness is the ideal thing. Now you do these four pillars any way you want to, any way you can. If you're at work, fine. But the four pillars are indeed the thing we need to do. But the optimal thing to do is after you fast, like I've done last night. My last meal last night was 8 p.m. Okay, it used to be 6, but now I have extended to 8 p.m. because I've added one other thing. My last food intake was 8 p.m. It was cottage cheese. Let me tell you why I had cottage cheese last night. So, 8 p.m., my first meal today is not going to be till 12 noon. All right? 12 noon. What does that give me as far as fasting is concerned? 8 o'clock last night to 8 a.m. this morning is 12 hours. All right, 8 to 8, right? 12. And so you go till noon, that's 16 hours. So I'm doing this 16-hour fast. Why am I doing a 16-hour fast? Because the data and the research shows that in order to start autophagy, in order to start cleaning out your system, you got to do it at least 14 hours. Okay. Now we're going to talk about some variations of that because again, everybody here is not just out here to lose fat. Burning fat is what we want to do if you're primarily here for fat loss. Everybody calls it weight loss, but I call it fat loss. Because again, weight loss with GLP-1 drugs is not what I want you to do. And we'll get into that in a second because I always have a comment about GLP-1 drugs, don't I? So the first thing we're going to do is fast. And the next thing we're going to do after our fasting is what I did this morning. I got up, put my shoes on and everything, and went outside and started walking. I did fitness. So number one is fasting. Number two is fitness. Why? Because the studies have shown, again, that if you exercise in a fasted state, you're going to amplify that autophagy. You're going to amplify, and you're basically going to start your day off right. Now, some people just can't exercise beginning in the morning, and I get that. But just remember these four pillars. These four pillars are the staple of what we're trying to do. But if you want to optimize it, if you want to optimize it, then basically exercising in a fasted state, meaning that exercising before you take anything else other than water, coffee, or tea. Get up in the morning, put your shoes and socks on, your tennis shoes on, go for your 30-minute zone two walk, right? We hadn't talked about zone two walking in a long time, but you all know what I mean, don't you? I'll keep my chat box open and just check things out. Okay. And every now and then when you hear me chuckle and I look at the chat box, somebody has said something funny. But anyway, I love the comments. No echo, burn more calories, be in a faster state. All right, so where was I? We're going to exercise in a faster state. That's optimal. But if you work early in the morning, you can't work out in the morning or whatever, and you exercise in the evening, that's perfectly fine with me because you're again incorporating one of these four pillars. But I'm just kind of giving you the optimal, what I do. All right. So I'm fasting. So I've been fasting now for 13 hours now. Okay. It's 9 o'clock. Started my fast 8 o'clock last night. That was my last cottage cheese meal. And now it's 9 o'clock. So I got 3 more hours to go before my first meal. All right. Then the first thing I'm gonna do, number three, is gonna be my protein. All right. So should I change this right now so everybody can? But anyway, we gotta basically do the fasting, and then we're gonna do the exercise, the fitness. So we got fasting, fitness, protein, and then fiber. So it should be fasting, fitness, protein, and fiber. FFPF. I love acronyms. FFPF. FFPF. I ought to change that right now, but I won't. All right. Fasting, fitness, protein, and fiber. Now, so what I'm going to do, that means that I've done my fasting, and at 12 o'clock, after I've done my workout, I'm going to take in some protein, right? How much protein am I going to take in? Open the chat box. Let me ask that question. And what kind of protein am I going to take in? Cheerios? Am I going to take some pancakes or some? I go to Waffle House. Am I going to give you some waffles and some eggs and bacon? What kind of protein am I going to take in? Anybody know from last week? Hmm. Nobody knows. Okay, so I'm going to take in 30 grams of protein. That's exactly right. I'm going to do it in the form of a whey protein shake. I got my whey protein right here. This is the powder. Okay. And I got a lot of questions this past week from patients that said, listen, you told me to take that premier shake after surgery. And that's what I've been taking all along. And that's cool. That is our shakes that we want you to take primarily when you're healing after surgery. But once you get healed and once you kind of and once you start to become a professor in this and you become a professional in this, then you're going to kind of switch over to the powdered shake because the ready-made shakes, they have some other things in them in order to make sure they have a long shelf life. And that's okay. So you can look at the side. They have some soybean oil, they have some safflower oil in it sometimes. They have some cottonseed oil in it. All right. And so we all know that those things break down. And those things break down into what we call oxalams. We won't go over that lecture. That's a lecture in and of itself. But the bottom line is that what I try to get people to do while I'm educating them after surgery is to stay away from refined carbohydrates and seed oils. Now, again, that's another topic that we don't have time to talk about today. But just suffice it to say that things with seed oils in it, like soybean oil, cottonseed oil, safflower oil, all these things break down into these little byproducts. These byproducts, and you've heard me talk about it before. I tried to impress you when I first learned the words. 4-hydroxynonenols, hydroxyoctadecanoic acid. Those things are what seed oils break down into. What are those? Those things are just toxic things that are in our body. So every time we eat something with seed oils in, we make little small, teeny, tiny toxins. And those toxins are specifically toxic to our mitochondria. Our mitochondria are the powerhouse of our cells, and we don't want to do that. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, so we just don't want to take the seed oils, and so those shakes that are pre-made have a little bit of that in it. So it's okay for a short period of time. Or if you got to travel to take one of those with you, or several of those while you're traveling because you can't take, your whey protein shake with you. It's okay to take those, but don't take them as a routine. I want you to basically get the whey protein isolate. Okay. And you can, if you're a young person, you start with 30 grams. And if you're old fart like me, you got to kind of take 2 scoops of these things, which gives you around about 1.5 scoop, which gives me about 40 grams of protein. Okay. But everybody here is a lot younger than I am. All right. So I'm going to take my whey protein isolate primarily at the end of my fasting fitness, which is what I did the workout. And why do I put it in that particular sequence? Because now I'm getting ready to, and I'm going to throw in some terms here, and I'm going to show you a video. You'll understand this a little bit, hopefully a little bit better with the video. But I've activated AMPK in the morning. Okay. AMPK is activated by stress of the body not receiving any calories, and then it's activated and augmented by exercise. You're stressing your body when you exercise. So AMPK is on. What does AMPK do again? Autophagy. What does autophagy do again? It burns fat. You're burning fat, and you're burning a lot of fat, and you're getting rid of all the junk in your cells. You really, really want to do those two things. Otherwise, what we're doing every day here is kind of not worthless, but it's just not optimal. And I'm trying to let you guys know that we need to be optimal because I've seen so many people around the world, and we go in here talks about bariatric surgery, about weight loss surgery, about even just general weight loss when people try phenamine and all that, is that if they don't optimize their health, they're going to gain the weight back. And in my practice and in most people's practice across the country, across the world, actually, there's about a 15 to 20% chance that you're going to regain your weight. The reason you continue to come back here is to learn this little tiny bits of information so that you don't regain the weight. Okay? So, so basically, again, we're going to fast. We're activating AMPK. AMPK is going to do those two things. It's going to burn fat, which is what we're all of us interested in, and we're going to get rid of the junk out of our cells. All right. Then we're going to take in our first protein of the day. It's called a protein pulse. We're going to do 4 protein pulses throughout the day. All right. I'm going to ask you a question about that protein in just a second. So you're going to do your first protein pulse throughout the day, and it's going to be a whey shake. Now, I don't care if you eat some eggs along with that, or a piece of egg, but a lot of you who've had gastric bypass surgery or sleep surgery won't be able to take in a lot. You may take one egg in, you may take some bacon and some avocado in, but that doesn't contain the amount of leucine that we need. I pause here, and I'll always pause because I don't want to introduce any terms before before I explain them. So the leucine is the reason we're taking in the whey protein isolate. I make a big deal about whey protein isolate primarily and the 30 to 40 grams primarily because it delivers that 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine. Leucine is what we're needing to begin our muscle protein synthesis, our muscle maintenance. We have to begin to think about maintaining muscle. And every time I say this, everybody says, well, Doc, I don't really want a lot of muscle. Yes, you do. You don't want a lot of muscle. I'm not trying to get you to become a bodybuilder, but I am trying to make sure that you maintain muscle mass. We've learned so much about muscle maintenance over the past couple of decades, and you haven't learned about it at all. Nobody has taught you about it. But you know, because everybody's taught you, okay, fine, start at the age of 30, you're going to lose 1% of your muscle mass every year of your life. So by the time you reach 50, you've lost 20% of your muscle mass, 1% per year. You've lost 20%. 20% is a lot. And when you get to my age, you've lost 40% of muscle mass. And everybody says, okay, that's just a part of aging. That is aging. Well, the new data has flipped that script. Aging is because you've lost the muscle mass. It's the chicken actually before the egg kind of a theory. So you don't necessarily have to lose that muscle mass. So you don't have to accelerate the aging because losing muscle mass accelerates the aging. Okay. So we want to reverse that around because when we go to sleep, we are losing muscle mass. When we're not actively trying to maintain our muscle mass, we are actively losing muscle mass. We've got to actually think about day to day if we're getting our protein, and that is where we first start beginning to think about maintaining muscle mass. And you will see the difference, not tomorrow, not next month, not next, but in the next year, the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you will begin to see on how you feel when you start reversing, when you're not losing muscle mass. You will begin to see how much better you feel. I'm able to lift more weights right now. There's my little weight machines over there than I was able to lift again when I was in my 50s. I'm not trying to become a bodybuilder. I'm just trying to maintain muscle mass. So, getting on a rant here, Anna. All right. So, pulse protein means I'm going to start my first meal with a whey protein isolate that contains 30 to 40 grams of protein, which equals 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine. Leucine is that key that unlocks the next phase of what I'm going to talk to you about, and that's the muscle protein synthesis. It unlocks mTOR. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about mTOR. Don't worry about AMPK. Just know that your first meal of the day you got to take after you've done your fasted exercise, you got to take, and this is the optimal part, you got to take in a whey protein shake. Okay, that begins, you said and then muscles say, whoa, I just got a big dose of leucine. I'm great. It starts to say, I'm not breaking the muscle down anymore. Just not gonna do it. Okay. And then after that first one at 12, for me, I'm going to eat 3 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock, I'm going to eat real food. That's going to probably be the only protein shake that I take today. Some people will have to take more protein shakes primarily because they just don't have the food in. They're not going to be able to get the food in. But you got to get one or the other in. You got to have 30 to 40 grams of protein 4 times a day. All right. And just think about what does that equal? Most of you right now, you go get some Waffle House or pancakes or some Cheerios or things like that. When you eat breakfast, you're not eating much protein. And then when you have lunch, you eat a sandwich. Yeah, ain't not so much protein there because it's bread and all that kind of stuff. That's how we get into this rut of where we are today. We're not concentrating on protein. So most people here today, and I'm going to ask you this question and put it in the chat box truthfully. How much protein do you get per day? Because not only do we have to have 4 pulses of protein, I'm going to show you the video of why the pulses matter. When I say pulse, you got to give yourself a full dose of protein, and you got to wait 3 hours and give you another dose of protein, wait 3 hours, another dose of protein, and another dose of protein at the end of the day. In the chat box, I am going to look how much protein did everybody get yesterday and the day before and the day before. How much daily protein are you all getting? I put my spectacles back on. I want to see this. All right. To be honest, I don't know. What's the protein shake that you use? This is it. Grass-fed whey protein isolate. Okay. All right. Somebody got 40 grams times 4. Lord have mercy. Okay. 40 grams times 4. All right. 160 grams. Anybody else? I don't know. Not enough. Most people, and this is just not you guys, but most people who are not coming to my webinar, so tell your friends to come to the webinar, are not getting enough protein. And then I do bariatric surgery, and then their hair falls out, the skin comes, uh, they look older. And one person put that in the chat box earlier. Oh, they're looking older and more fragile after this bariatric surgery. I don't know if I want that stuff. It is not the surgery doing it. It is the amount of protein that you're taking in every single day. All right. Whey protein isolate, 12 o'clock. Then 3 hours later, why 3 hours later? I'm going to explain that to you in a minute. That whey protein isolate is the first pulse. The second pulse is going to come at 3 o'clock. My third pulse is going to come at 6 o'clock. What am I going to have at 3 o'clock? All right. So I'm going to have me a tuna fillet or something of that nature. All right. So I gotta have, whatever I have has got to equal 30 to 40 grams of protein. One tuna fillet is equal to 35 grams of protein. One pork chop, or a third of a pork chop, is equal to 30 grams or 40 grams of protein. One chicken breast, a small 4-ounce chicken breast, equals 40 grams of protein. All the things that I'm telling you to do will equal the protein that you need to get in every day. And at the end of the day, when I tell you to take your either your casein intake or your cottage cheese, that's going to give you 30 grams of protein, which is going to give you that pulse of what? Leucine, the 2.5 grams to 3 grams of leucine. So, four protein pulses at least 30 grams, whether it's the chicken breast, whether it's the filet, whether it's the salmon, whether it's the pork chop. I'm taking 40 grams each time I take in. 4 times 40, I've taken 162, just like the person who put it on there before. I get 160 grams. Most people don't even get 100 grams. A young lady told me the other day I was going to do her paniculectomy. I do after the weight loss surgery, a year or two later, I take off the excess skin for a lot of people because it bothers them, and obviously that's what I was going to do before I started doing bariatrics. I was going to do plastic surgery the rest of my life. I decided to combine the two. So we do weight loss surgery first, and then I do the excess skin loss. But her skin didn't look that great. And I said, "How much protein are you getting in every day?" He said, I have this and I have this for breakfast and I have this for lunch. And we counted it together. And she had 3 meals in a day. And we counted it together. She was getting probably around about 50 grams of protein total. Total. Well, the first thing that you got to do is get the total amount right. Because protein is not just for your hair, your nails, your muscles. That's the last place it goes to. The protein that the science says that you got to take in every day, which is 1.6 grams to 2.2 grams per kilogram. So if you're a 70 kilogram person, which is what a 70 kilogram person, about 160 pounds, 170 pounds, if you got to get almost a 0.75 to a pound, a gram per pound. I mean, so if you got 0.75, you got everybody here, period. Just, I'm gonna make it easy for you. You ain't got to calculate it in your head, but everybody here has to have over 100 grams of protein every single day just to make the protein that goes through our brain for our neurotransmitters, just to make the protein that replaces our organs, that repairs our organ. When we're doing this autophagy, it requires us to repair the organs and get rid of the junk. We got to put something back, right? Take out the trash. You got to put some, basically, you got to put something back. You got to repair something. So those studies were done that shows 1.6 to 2.2. They were done basically on isotope studies. They say, okay, fine, I'm going to label this particular amino acid with a particular radioactive substance. And then it traces it where it goes in your body. It goes to your intestinal lining, it goes to your brain, it goes to your kidneys, it goes to your liver. So you got to have a certain amount of protein just for your regular body uses. That's where you got to have 100 grams of protein. Then on top of that, you got to have the protein that goes to your muscle. So we have to be getting 30 to 40 grams of protein 4 times a day. So minimum, I'm talking about 120 grams for everybody. And I bet you don't get that. Okay. So that's the first thing we're going to learn. All right. And then before I eat that 3 o'clock meal, and before I eat that 6 o'clock meal, because I'm going to eat something with that pork chop, right? I'm going to probably have vegetables. But just in case you guys decide, okay, fine, I'm going to have me oh, some potato with that. I used to say, no, no, you got to put the potato out. You got to put the sweet potato up. You cannot have a piece of bread. I used to say you cannot do that because that's carbohydrate and you kind of ruin the effect. That's what I used to say, right? You remember that, right? I don't say that anymore. You just take your fiber 15 minutes before that meal, and you will have no problem. This is the fiber that a lot of people ask me. This is a psyllium husk. This is the real deal from Amazon, but you can get the same thing. This is Probably not that expensive, but this is a little bit more expensive than this stuff. This is the Metamucil. I'm going to do a quick little experiment here for you. Because what I want that fiber to do is when you take that potato is going to make your glucose shoot up, right? I want to put this stuff. I have a different type of fiber that I sell at the office. I'm going to take a teaspoon of this stuff, put it in this water. Okay, let me stand up to do this because I don't want to spill the stuff. All right. Then I'm going to take this thing right here, put it in here. I'm going to stir it up a little bit. Let that sit for a while. Let me show you what happened. Okay. Then I want to take, that's the Metamucil. I'm going to take this one, and take a teaspoon of this psyllium husk right here, the real deal. So my point today is that everybody who thinks that they're taking in the right fiber, probably not. So I'm gonna take this psyllium husk here, this stuff here, put it in another glass. It's just a teaspoon and a half, couple teaspoons. All right. I'm gonna do the same little stir thing. And so I got a little bit of confession to make, and that's why I'm doing this experiment. This is the 3-in-1. Okay. That's the stuff I told you to take early on. I'm going to put that into, this is what somebody told me that they were taking still because they hadn't listened to me in a while. And so they said, I'm going to take that. So I'm going to put that in here. That's the 3-in-1. As I spill everything on our computer. Uh-oh. I stopped sharing. Let's see if we go back to that thing. Okay, here we go. All right. Got me? All right, let me go ahead and stop the share for a little bit. I know. So I'm gonna stir this up again. You can still see me. Now except for this one, they've all been sitting for a little while. Let me let you see what's happened to it. This is the stuff. This is the gel. This is the real psyllium husk. Look at that. It's like pudding. It won't move. This is the Metamucil. Same kind of thing. It's like pudding. It won't move. You put this in your stomach, that's what we want. And then you put it in your stomach in a little small thing like this in cold water, you drink it down in a shot. All right. You drink it in a shot, and basically it sits there, but it's a small amount. So it makes a small glob. It'll make this glob, okay? But you want a bigger glob because you want to feel that, have that full feeling. You want a bigger glob. So then you drink some more water. You drink another 8 ounces of water. You drink that other 8 ounces of water. Now you got a big glob. What are you doing? You're preparing just in case you eat some bread, just in case you eat sweet potato, macaroni and cheese, or some pasta at that 3 o'clock meal. I'm not, but I still take my fiber with me because the fiber also does another thing. This is the 3-in-1. Now, if I turn this is going to pour out. So the 3-in-1 has psyllium husk on the label, but that psyllium husk is hydrolyzed. They did it in order to improve the taste because, frankly, these taste pretty bad. But the other the other fiber that I sell in the uh, in the office will do this same thing, but they don't taste so bad, and it's a diversified fiber. It takes four. So, but look, but like I said, I want to make sure that y'all see this. This is that glob that I want in your stomach. This is that glob because then you then eat some mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese. You put it in that glob. It captures that stuff as your stomach breaks it down. It captures that glucose spike. The glucose spike is important because the glucose spike is what's going to give you the insulin spike, and the insulin spike stays up 4 hours. Remember, we talked about that. So our goal with fiber is several, but controlling the first thing we want to do is control our glucose spike. So before every meal, 15 minutes before every meal, I take my fiber. No, I'm going to do the 3-in-1 because the fiber, and I apologize for saying that because I told people to take it because it had on the label 3-in-1. Somebody bought me, said, listen, I'll take my fiber. They bought me some bitter fiber. I showed them the experiment. The, there, just because it says fiber on the label doesn't mean it is good. Doesn't mean it's the fiber that I want you to all to take. Okay. Anyway, that was a long story to get to that. Oh, somebody says not seeing. Oh, y'all didn't see my screen? Did I miss y'all miss that whole thing? Anybody ever see that demonstration? I just now looked over the screen. You said that so okay, some people didn't see it, some people saw it. That's weird. That's weird. Okay. Anyway, that's the demonstration for today. So now so one of the patients asked me yesterday, she says, because she kind of got a little upset with me yesterday, and I appreciated her getting upset with me because I started telling her some things that I wanted her to do, and she asked me the question, Doc, have you ever been fat? She said, I hate doctors to sit there and tell me what to do and all that kind, and they've never been in my shoes. And I appreciated that. I said, come to the webinar tomorrow. I said, come to the webinar, we'll show you. Because yeah, I've been fat. That's me. And it's just me on my down slope. I'm getting less fat. That's me. And I show y'all this every weekend. But hope this is me trying to suck it in. Whenever I purse my lips like that, I'm trying to suck that in. But yeah, I had weighed more than this. This is probably around about 205, 207. I had weighed up to almost 215, 216. And I was sick. Along with this came pre-diabetes. Now, I hate that term pre-diabetes because at this time, my hemoglobin A1C, and that's what I was measuring. But I tell you all right now, I don't believe in the term pre-diabetes. You're either diabetic or you're not. And basically, pre-diabetes just means that you're about to become diabetic, period. So when people tell you that you're pre-diabetic, if your doctor tells you you're pre-diabetic, ask them to take a fasting insulin. They take that fasting insulin. If that insulin level is way up like this, which mine was, as yours is when you're pre-diabetic, then they need to counsel you on how to get it back down. The one thing you got to start doing getting it back down is first of all, take away the carbohydrates. Period. Full stop. Take away the carbohydrates. All right. Because you got to reverse it because type 2 diabetes is man-made. We weren't born with. We were people who are type 1 diabetics were born with that way. Or they lose for some reason they lose their pancreatic beta cells later on in life. But when you lose your pancreatic beta cells, either you're born that way or you lose them later in life, you're type 1 diabetic. Nothing you can do about that. You got to take insulin. All right. But type 2 diabetic, that's man-made. That means you've been eating pasta, you've been eating refined carbohydrates, you've been eating seed oils, you've been eating all your life. That was me. I lived in the food desert. I lived on 1813 North Peoria Road in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We didn't have any Whole Foods around. We didn't have any healthy groceries. We didn't have any Sprouts. We had gas station food. We had Cheetos. We had fried foods. We had foods that made us sick. Okay, but we didn't know anything about it. And so I'm telling you all about it now. We had the foods, and it's not our fault. These are the foods that were available to us. But yeah, I was obese. I was obese. And as I became sick, went into congestive heart failure, diabetes, hypertension, sleep apnea. I forgot about that one. I told you I got like three CPAP machines in the closet there. But so I was sicky. I was sicky. And this is in my life. This is me today. Okay. All right. So this is me pursing my lips again and sucking it in. So yes, I've been there, done that. But I feel so much better now that I've got to tell you guys this story because there is a way that we can reverse what it is that we got. And that's what this is all about today. Okay. Before and after, right? Sucking it in, sucking it in. Sucking it in a lot better now. I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not going to be a bodybuilder, but I'm talking to you about what I'm trying to do. All right. I'm going to stop sharing this and then we're going to go to a video that hopefully will explain this better than I just did. Okay. All righty. So if I go to, I don't know which one it is, but I need to go to one of my, don't worry, I don't have anything bad on my laptop, so that's why I'm not afraid to show you all my stuff. Okay. All righty. I'm gonna go.
Your
I'm gonna try.
cells begin to
I'm gonna
consume.
try this, and this is a video. And as these videos are talking, they're gonna say some things that you may not understand, and I'm gonna stop it. So excuse me for stopping it. I don't want to break your train of thought, but they're gonna say some things that I'm gonna emphasize those things. Okay, so let's do this.
16-hour fast, your cells begin to consume their own debris to sustain the body's and during a 16-hour fast, your cells begin to consume their own debris to sustain the body's energy needs. This is the primary driver behind intermittent fasting, forcing the body to incinerate stored fat and recycle
Hold on, I just realized that you guys aren't seeing what I'm seeing. My bad. My bad again. Okay, let me see here if I can go in. I'm gonna go back to Zoom. Sorry about that, guys. Can't see video. Okay. See, you need to look over there. Let me share my screen. Thank you for telling me. Okay, let me see if I can go back to it now. Like I said, I got all these controls on the computer and they get in the way. That ain't it. Is that it? That ain't it. This is it. All right. All right. So I think you can see the screen now. Sorry about that. I had to, I had to do some other things. Okay. Start it over if I can. Nope, nope, nope. Everybody says he's not very technical. So these globs and all that don't mean anything, but just kind of listen to what they're saying. Sometimes the video doesn't match what the message is, but like I said, I'm going to be stopping and letting you see it a little bit better, okay?
During a 16-hour fast, your cells begin to consume their own debris to sustain the body's energy needs. This is the primary driver behind intermittent fasting, forcing the body to incinerate stored fat and recycle damaged cellular components. But this process lacks a precision filter. Prolonged fasting forces the breakdown of lean muscle tissue, the metabolic engine that maintains your resting calorie burn and manages blood glucose. This creates a constant biological conflict between two metabolic pathways that cannot fully function at the same time. As fasting duration increases on the x-axis, the body activates AMPK, initiating fat oxidation and cellular cleanup. Simultaneously, the plot point drops, suppressing mTOR, the switch for muscle synthesis. These antagonistic pathways force a biological trade-off. You cannot maximize both at once. The two standard models for navigating this are 16-8, a 16-hour fast with an 8-hour eating window, and 14-10, which uses a 14-hour fast and a 10-hour window. To succeed, you must time your protein intake to stop muscle loss without negating the metabolic benefits of the fast. There is a common belief that consuming a high volume of protein in a single window will automatically preserve your muscle mass. This line graph tracks muscle protein synthesis over time. When you consume a high-quality protein meal at hour zero, your cells initiate a significant spike in synthesis. Providing 30 to 40 grams of protein initiates the signaling for roughly 2 to 3 hours before the synthesis rate naturally declines. If you consume more protein during this elevated period, as seen here, the line does not rise further. This is the muscle full effect, a refractory period where the muscle temporarily stops responding to amino acids. Any excess protein is simply oxidized for energy. This signaling process is driven specifically by the amino acid leucine. Your body requires a threshold of roughly 3 grams of leucine per meal to successfully activate the mTOR pathway.
All right. So what is said there, that all this mTOR and all this kind of stuff, don't bother with that. But the bottom line is that what I've told you about the 30 to 40 grams of protein, all it does is it equals that leucine. All they're getting ready to do now is explain to you biochemically, and this is probably good for my medical students or whatever, but not necessarily you guys. But if you kind of paint these pictures in your mind, you will remember it as when I finish all this whole thing, I'm going to give you all what it is I want you to do every single day. I'm going to give you your blueprint. And if you're here and you are basically here and you don't have any fat to lose, then you have one blueprint. Okay, that's the 1014 that they're talking about. But with fat to lose, you got to do 16 hours of fasting. Okay, 16 hours of fasting to build up the autophagy. Remember, I said before, the studies say you got to at least fast for 12 to 14 hours before autophagy even begins. I mean, it's not an off and on switch, but autophagy starts to ramp up. If you eat again, then autophagy goes away. And within that time period. So after 12, 14, 16 hours, autophagy is in full effect at 16 hours. And when autophagy is in full effect at 16 hours, you're burning fat. So if you're here to burn fat, that's going to be the program that I'm going to talk to you about. Okay. All righty.
Digestion speed determines how quickly this signal reaches the tissue. Whey isolate is a fast digesting source that provides a rapid stimulus to stop muscle breakdown, while casein protein is slow digesting, providing a steady release of amino acids overnight.
Okay. I had to stop again on that one too. The reason I'm going to talk to you about casein protein at night is because most of us sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. Okay. That's 2 3 hour periods that we're not keeping our muscles from breaking down. Our muscles are expensive to maintain. So if we're not actively consuming protein, then it's saying, okay, fine, this muscle is too expensive to keep around. Let me break it down. And so that's how we lose muscle mass. We lose muscle mass at night. The thing that they're going to show you, they may not show you, is that when we go to sleep, in our first couple of hours of sleep, this is a process where we're releasing a particular hormone that tries to keep us from breaking down our muscle. It's called growth hormone. So it tries to do it. But you got growth hormone and you have no protein that you've taken in before you go to bed, then the growth hormone is not going to do a great job in keeping your protein mass, your muscle mass from breaking down. I hope that makes sense. And because during that time of non-REM sleep, that first couple hours, and you're getting into that deep sleep, your growth hormone shoots up. It shoots up primarily because that is the time it wants to preserve the muscle mass. Okay. But if you got to give it something to preserve muscle mass. Where did all this information come from? Your doctors don't know this, but this comes from this comes from the professional sports, all the scientists that are involved in professional sports because they're trying to keep their athletes for the NFL and the NBA and all other professional sports teams. They're trying to keep their multi-million dollar athletes in top shape because they got a multi-billion dollar industry to run. It's an aside. All right, so here we go. I'm going to let it play out. I may not stop it anymore.
Nutrition alone is insufficient. You must provide a mechanical signal through resistance training. Heavy lifting keeps your muscle cells sensitive to these protein pulses for up to 72 hours. Protecting lean tissue during a fast is about the strategic timing of these pulses to maximize muscle building windows rather than total protein volume. For those prioritizing muscle retention and metabolic health, the 1410 protocol is the most efficient structure. This timeline shows how meals are distributed. In the 1410 column on the left, the first pulse occurs at 10 a.m. Using whey isolate here provides the rapid amino acid spike needed to stop the muscle breakdown that occurred overnight. Because whey digests quickly, the muscle resets in time for whole food meals at 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. High leucine sources like chicken or beef trigger 2 additional synthesis windows without overlapping the refractory periods. The final pulse at 8 p.m. uses casein protein or cottage cheese. This creates a prolonged release of amino acids that continues to repair muscle while you begin the 14-hour fast. A 10-hour window allows for 4 precisely spaced leucine pulses, maximizing your daily anabolic potential. If your primary objective is fat loss, the 16-8 protocol is a more aggressive tool. The right column shows the 16-8 schedule, where the fast extends until 12 p.m. This condenses your total eating time to just 8 hours. At noon, you must use whey protein to provide a fast-acting signal that terminates the extended state of muscle breakdown. Fitting the remaining pulses into an 8-hour window is more difficult. You must space meals roughly every 3 hours to ensure the muscle has exited the refractory period from the previous pulse. You finish at 8 p.m. with a casein pulse to minimize the breakdown that will occur over the next 16 hours. The 16-8 schedule involves a trade-off. You achieve deeper fat mobilization and cellular cleanup, but the compressed window makes it difficult to fit in a fourth optimal building opportunity. The effectiveness of these protocols depends entirely on your current biological state and your primary goals. This decision flowchart matches the protocol to your physical objectives. For those dealing with obesity or insulin resistance, the 16-8 protocol provides a longer duration for fat mobilization and metabolic repair. Those focused on maximum muscle retention and longevity should follow the 14-10 protocol. Regardless of the protocol, you must meet total daily protein requirements and perform resistance training at least 3 times a week to preserve lean tissue. By aligning your nutrition with these biological windows, you stop chronic muscle loss and build a more resilient metabolic profile. You cannot maximize the benefits of fasting and muscle building simultaneously. You must select the protocol that aligns with your highest priority. To develop a tailored plan that fits your clinical needs, consult with the medical team at Peachtree Surgical and Bariatrics.
It's AI, something, right? All right. So again, the whole bottom line of that, let me see if I can go find, let's see if people understood that. All right. So I want to give you all a quiz. And uh, some of these questions, let's see. Hmm. Let's see where I can go. Let me go back to the previous. Oh, we've already answered this last week. So none of these are. All these are. Oh, actually, this is the wrong one. This is actually when they're talking about this kind of stuff. That's the wrong kind of quiz. Okay, so I'm going to close that one out and just give us a simpler quiz. Okay. All right, let's see if I can find a simpler quiz. Because what I want you to do is to develop an idea. So I'm going to keep the chat box open so y'all can ask some questions. Water. Does coffee with almond milk break your fast? Yeah, it does. Coffee in itself, no. But yeah, you add anything like almond milk or any sort of protein. When you get almond milk has a little bit of protein, so yep, it'll break that fast. Okay. So just when you wake up in the morning, you can add you some tea, some coffee, or some water, mm, and your fast is still going on. But as soon as you take in calories, just because of that science that I just talked about, you're taking in some sort of calories that turns off that AMPK. AMPK and mTOR cannot be turned on at the same time. So it turns off the AMPK, you're stopping the autophagy, you're stopping the fat burning, and your body is now switching over to mTOR, which is begins the building phase. Okay? Let's see if I can make that more clear. Biomechanisms quiz, is that one? Maybe this is a good one. All right, maybe this is a good. Maybe this. Let's see. And continue to put your questions in the chat box for me. It looks like we've answered this one too. All right. Maybe sometimes when I go through these questions and I ask them, yeah, it looks like we answered those already. But anyway, let's just go for fun. All right. Again, on my screen, I got a bunch of things in the way, so I got to get it out the way in order to see what I'm doing. It says, which biological mechanism explains how viscous soluble fiber? You see this? This is viscous soluble fiber. This is this saline husk. Tastes terrible too, but so you got to get it down quickly. This right here, Metamucil. So this is what I was talking about. Okay, this tastes a little bit better, viscous. Right, boom. Everybody see that? All right. So which biological mechanism explains how viscous soluble fibers such as psyllium husk help flatten postprandial glucose spikes? So it gives you the answer right here. So hopefully I'll get to some questions and answers on here. They act as a biological speed bump. Let's see what the other answers, the questions were. They directly inhibit SGLT and GLUT. Whenever they start throwing in funny looking things like this is always the wrong answer. They accelerate the fermentation of short chain fatty acids in the small intestine to provide immediate energy. They function as an insoluble broom to increase the speed of fecal transit and prevent glucose contact with the intestinal wall. So, what they're talking about here is the fibers that we all used to think that when I say, "Hey, are you eating your fiber every day?" Everybody used to say, "Yeah, yeah, I get my vegetables." Those are insoluble fibers. What we need are soluble fibers, and soluble fiber is the psyllium husk, the locust bean gum, the guar gum, and all that kind of stuff. That forms the gel. Okay, and the vegetables are still good because you do need to have your broccoli, you do need to have your asparagus, you do need to have your cauliflower to help clean your colon, but it's like the broom of your colon. It's for colon health, and that's good to have colon health, but it doesn't provide any metabolic glucose absorption. The other thing that this thing has in it is that it sucks in not only the glucose, but it sucks in bile salts. Now, bile salts are the things that we have from our liver that help us digest fat. So when you're eating bacon or avocado, anything that contains fat, even salmon, you've got to have some enzymes coming from your liver called bile juice, bile salts that help you digest that fat. All right. So that's constantly made by your liver, and that's made from cholesterol. All right. So when you have an elevated LDL cholesterol and your doctor wants to put you on a statin, just ask him. Be nice. Be friendly with him. Hey, doc, can I try some? Can I try some Metamucil first? And just ask them because if you have this a mild elevation of the LDL, the first thing that they're going to do because they don't know about this stuff is they're going to put you on a statin. And the statins have their own side effects. So try this because what that does is it absorbs the bile salts. And when it absorbs the bile salts, those bile salts normally are circulated around back to the liver. So it makes it over and over and over again by not excreting it. When you take it in here and it absorbs in here, it goes out your poo-poo. That's a technical term. That's a scientific term. But it goes out your poo-poo. And when it goes out your poo-poo, you're deficient in bile salts. And therefore, you're lowering your cholesterol. You're lowering your cholesterol, and your liver saying, whoa, I don't have enough cholesterol to make the stuff that's going to help them digest the bacon, help them digest the steak. I got to make some more bile salts. I got to make some more bile. And it does so. I said, but I need some material to work with. Where am I going to get that material? It gets it out of the blood. So it takes that LDL cholesterol out of the blood and it takes it back to the liver. It makes more bile salts. It's an ingenious way, even though it's from a little simple thing like this that nobody's telling you about. It's an ingenious way to lower your cholesterol. Cool, huh? All right, next. All right, according to the leucine trigger hypothesis, what is the approximate amount of leucine required in a single meal to effectively activate the mTOR pathway for muscle protein synthesis? Let me just kind of open that. I'm not going to show you the answer. Let me see if yeah, the answer is down there and it's highlighted in green. So I'm going to have you all just kind of put it in just to see if you all are listening. How many grams of leucine are we talking about? Now, I'm just going to give you a hint. I'm not talking about the 30, 40 grams of protein because the 30, 40 grams of protein in this is giving me a certain amount of leucine. This is all the science I want you to know. I mean, because I need you to know how much leucine you need to be getting every single protein pulse. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Everybody's getting that right. 2 to 3, 2.5 to 3. Yep. This is exactly 10 grams, exactly 1.6 grams, approximately 0.5 grams. The answer is 2.5 to 3. That's right. This range is identified as the threshold necessary to signal the cell to move from a post-absorber state, the the autophagy state, to an anabolic state to keep in your muscle. Okay. All right. Oops. I gave you the answer right up front. What occurs during the muscle full refractory period? This is something I need just so you guys to understand. Because some people this week um, came in and says, this, I get my protein. I give me a good steak and I have this and I have this. And they're taking all their protein in one or two pulses. You gotta know the science behind this because again, this is the thing. This is called the muscle full effect. That's that refractory period. After you get that 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine, you won't any additional protein beyond that. So if you're taking 60 grams, 70 grams in one meal or two meals, and you're not spreading it out, you you're not wasting the protein. You're still that protein is still going to repair your liver. It's still going to repair your intestinal tract and all that. But and you're not burning fat. But and so that's what we want to do. But anything after that, your muscle says, okay, fine, I'm full. 2.5 grams of leucine is enough. I'm full. So anything else you eat, you're just basically it's luxury. But you're not optimizing those other cycles. Okay. So that means that if you're eating your protein all for breakfast, 40 grams or 50 grams, you're not hungry for the next 6 hours and you don't eat again until later on, then you got a little bit of an issue. So, because, and I'm saying this primarily because one patient asked me, what about the 1 meal a day, the OMAD, 1 meal a day approach? And with 1 meal a day, that's what I'm talking about. You're going to get that particular problem. Um, so I don't recommend that if we're trying to lose fat, the 1 meal a day was a scientifically proven to lose weight. But the weight you were losing is just like the weight that you're losing with GLP-1. You were losing muscle mass because you're taking your 1 meal a day. And if you're taking 100 grams of protein in that 1 meal a day, you're only getting one pulse of 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine, only one. That means that the other times that you're not trying to preserve that muscle mass, you're losing that muscle mass. Okay. Okay. I'm going to be through early today because I'm about through here. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, let's see. Go to, uh-oh. Let me go. There we go. Next. I'll give you, whenever it gives you the A up front, it gives you the answer. In choosing your strategy model, what is the primary difference in the morning decision between the 16-8, the 16 hours of fasting and 8 hour feeding window, and the 14-10 protocols, the 14 hours of fasting and the 10 hours of feeding window? This starts at 10 a.m. and ends at 8. Both of them end at 8 o'clock. And the last two numbers are 6 and 8, 6 and 8. So you're either going to do 12, 3, 6 and 8, or 10, 2, 6 and 8. Gotta find a better way to remember that. But anyway, it says the 16-8 protocol prioritizes fat loss, okay? Delaying the first protein pulse, while the 14-10 protocol prioritizes muscle preservation by taking protein shortly after exercise. Delaying protein extends the fat burning window, AMPK, whereas earlier protein captures post-exercise sensitivity, mTOR. I don't expect you to remember all that, but anyway, let's see what else. I'm having fun here. Are you? All right. How does the activation of AMPK influence the mTOR? That's too technical. Oh, this is one that you need to know, even though it's more slightly technical. Which myokine acts as a negative regulator? And this is not the question I wanted to, but I wanted to make the point that every time you contract your muscle, you're releasing things called myokines. Myokines are the signals from your brain that signal out to your other organs that say, hey, we got muscle. That muscle is working. So everything else in your body needs to be working, including your brain. One of the myokines that have been heavily studied is BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor. Okay. So So that is a mild kind. When your muscle mass, it is no question. There are studies out there. You can Google them. You can WhatsApp. You can do anything you want to and see the studies that show there's a direct correlation with muscle preservation and decreasing dementia. Okay? As long as you're preserving your muscle mass, you have less likely chance of getting dementia. Whereas the opposite occurs as your muscle mass, if you allow your muscle mass to decline, your brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which increases the flexibility of neurons in your brain cells, that declines because you're not having muscle release this myokine. And that is definitely an increased association with you losing muscle mass, and including GLP-1s. You losing muscle mass. That is one of the reasons why I say these companies are telling you to stay on GLP-1s for the rest of your life. They don't have a bit of evidence for that. So they shouldn't be telling you. I think that's wrong. Because GLP-1s, if you're going to lose muscle mass for the rest of your life, you're going to get your dementia. We're going to have a bunch of zombies walking around. I get a little excited about the GLP-1s because, again, not because they're cutting down the surgery, because I'm trying to keep most people off of my operating table. I really am. But taking GLP-1 drugs is not the way. Okay, anyway. But one of the mild kinds that they're talking about is going to be this one. That's why I didn't get down to it. It's myostatin. That inhibits your muscle from growing too much because you got to have a balance. You want to preserve muscle, but you don't want to preserve it so much. So your myostatin, and so a lot of bodybuilders will take other drugs, i.e. steroids and all that. That turns off myostatin, so their muscles grow like crazy. But but we do have regulators. All the body's trying to do is to preserve muscle mass in order for you to age gracefully, keep your memory, keep your brain, but it doesn't want to do too much. So if you start taking a bunch of stuff, it has a safety check. Myostatin serves as the brakes on muscle growth, and its reduction via exercise is necessary for hypertrophy. Okay, it's kind of counterintuitive, but it makes sense because the body, it doesn't want you to become a bodybuilder. It just wants you to preserve muscle. That's all it is. So it puts brakes on it. What is the role of cestrin 2? Well, cestrin 2 is the thing that releases mTOR. That's too technical. Let's go to the next one. How does viscous fiber, here we go. Now it's back to a fiber question. How does viscous fiber contribute to the lowering of LDL bad cholesterol? Just told you that answer, didn't I? How does viscous fiber contribute to the lowering of LDL bad cholesterol? It activates mTOR pathway. I think this question is already answered, but it activates the mTOR pathway in the liver, which destroys LDL cholesterol for energy. It's too complicated of an answer. It converts LDL cholesterol into HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol. I wish. It absorbs LDL cholesterol, and you can see that the answer is coming up because I've already looked at that. I don't know why I won't reset. I can't get it to reset because I use these questions over and over. Man, I'll try it again today. It traps bile acids in its gel matrix. It traps the bile acids and it prevents them from being recycled because bile acids, 95 to 98% of them are recycled coming from the lower part of your bowel, your small bowel, and then it goes back up to your liver. So your liver always has a fresh pool of bile acids. This traps the bile acids in this and prevents them from being recycled, forcing the liver to use blood cholesterol where your LDL is in your blood. That's where it's making the plaque. That's where it's giving you the heart attacks. That's where it's giving you the strokes. It takes that blood cholesterol to make new bile. So it robs the bile in your blood it robs the LDL cholesterol in your blood where you don't want it, and it takes it back to make new bile cells. Ingenious from a very, very simple product that costs $16. This costs $16. It's going to last me a month, but I don't, I can't take it all the time. I take my balance. The balance has good things in. I'll teach y'all that when y'all come to the office. By interrupting recycling of bile acids, the body must pull LDL cholesterol from circulation to replenish the supply. Kind of cool. Kind of cool. I love it. Resistance training introduces a mechanical signal that can extend the muscle building window to what duration? You might not know that because I didn't mention that in the video, nor did I mention it before. But it says A, 12 to 24 hours, B, 2 to 3 hours, C, 48 to 72 hours, D, indefinitely. So what it's asking is that resistance training augments the response from that whey protein shake that you take in the morning or anytime. So resistance training augments it and gives you a higher response. So that's why you see a lot of athletes who are basically taking, after the resistance training or before the resistance training, they're taking their whey protein shake. It gives them a greater response. The exercise gives them a greater response. It doesn't extend the period, it just gives them a greater response. All right. So it does it during this one of these periods, 12 to 24 hours, 2 to 3 hours, is 48 to 72 hours, or indefinitely. Yeah, 72 hours. There you go. 72 hours. That was one question we didn't answer. Heavy lifting makes the muscles hypersensitive to subsequent protein pulses for up to 3 days. That's why we only tell you to work out 3 days a week because you got 72 hours that your muscles is helping you being preserved by taking in the whey protein isolate and exercise. All right. Let's see what it says. Let's say hit explain. Let me see what that means. Okay. Well, don't want to do that. Let me go back. That was all right. Why did I do that? All right. Number 10, according to the sources, why is it specifically recommended to consume casein protein or cottage cheese at the final pulse of the day? That's a good question. Y'all answer that. Number A, let me make sure I don't have the answer. Nope, I don't. It acts as a metabolic bridge by providing a slow, steady release of amino acids to prevent muscle breakdown during overnight fast. B, casein digests rapidly to ensure mTOR is activated before falling asleep. C, it contains high levels of viscous fiber that block fat absorption during sleep. D, casein is the only protein capable of activating AMPK to promote fat during while you sleep. That's a little complicated question, but yeah, you should know the answer to that, right? Everybody got it. Almost everybody got it. All right. The answer, let's say, is A. And that's right. The slow digestion rate ensures the body has access to building blocks for repair throughout the 8 to 16 hours of sleep while fasting. You got 8 hours, and your body has the refractory period is for 2 or 3 hours. So you got two windows in there that you're not preserving protein. And so anytime you go without preserving protein, your body's gonna say, hey, that protein is too expensive to keep around. If you're not using it because you're sleeping and hey, it's just sitting there, it costing me calories in order to keep it around, I'm gonna break it down. But if you're taking the cottage cheese, or where's the other one? If you don't like cottage cheese, then you got to get this casein protein shake. Casein, Casein. It says 25 grams. I take 2 scoops of this whenever I don't have cottage cheese. But the cottage cheese is easier for me. I put some blueberries in there, some blackberries in there, and basically it tastes great. Okay. Cottage cheese gives me that 30 to 40 grams, depending on you just take 1 cup, put you some walnuts in there, some blueberries in there. It's a great dessert. I use it as my dessert, but I take it, about 30, 40 minutes, an hour, go to sleep. So that 8 o'clock time at night is assuming that you go to bed when I go to bed. But I'm not. So that 8 o'clock is an estimate of when you go to bed. And so I get to bed around about 9:30, something like that. So taking that that casein shake just before you go to bed. So you can take it at 9 o'clock if you go to bed at 10 o'clock. Taking it, and then what it does is it's trying to capture that moment that you're basically going to increase your growth hormone in that non-REM sleep. Okay. So that growth hormone now has casein. When this hits the stomach, when this casein protein or when cottage cheese hits the stomach, it turns into something similar to this. It turns into a curd-like stuff. So it's like, so you see the cottage cheese, it turns into that into the stomach. And then when it mixes with the acid of the stomach, then it just slowly digests. So it doesn't just give you the protein surge like whey protein does, because whey protein is rapidly absorbed in your bowel and gives you the immediate protein surge. This stuff, or cottage cheese, sits there and it just kind of disintegrates slowly. So the protein that it's giving you is bridging that 8 hour gap that you're sleeping and not getting. Again, an ingenious approach that we've learned from professional athletes. Okay. They spend all their money on these scientists, do all these experiments. They don't tell us doctors about it. We got to go find it out ourselves. I'm not complaining though. All right. Research on AMPK deficient mice, AMPK mice knockout, reveal that during prolonged fasting, these mice suffered from. Interesting. I don't know the answer to this one. Let me see if I can guess it with you guys. Hypoglycemia and a block in muscle proteolysis that reduce available alanine for liquid. Man, I don't expect you. I don't know that kind of stuff. Because I don't know. Enhance mitochondrial function and increase exercise capacity during age. Hyperinsulinemia caused by oversecretion of myokines like myostatin. Excessive muscle hypertrophy due to the lack of a stop signal. What was the question again? Research on AMPK deficient knockout mouse. So this means that the AMPK never turns on or never turns off. I don't know. What's the answer? Y'all tell me. Somebody put in that, I hate cottage cheese. Okay. For those who hate cottage cheese, get this. But some of the things that I'm telling you to do today, not controversial. You can take in cottage cheese, you can take in casein, or you can take in any material that has casein, like ricotta cheese. You'd like to eat cheese at night. There's certain types of cheese. I guess that's where the name cottage cheese comes from. But cheeses have casein in it. Just Google what foods have casein in it. You can get, I think that there are some yogurts that have a high amount of casein, but you got to have that 30 to 40 grams of protein with that casein. So, yeah, Greek yogurts. Look up some Greek yogurts. If you don't like cottage cheese, casein protein powder, or either that will be fine. All right. All right. Cheese and Greek yogurt. So, doctor, I have a problem comparing with lab rats. All right. Let me just see. I don't know what the answer is. The answer is going to be hypoglycemia and AMPK is required to activate the autophagy that provides. I'm still laughing at that joke to myself. I have a hard time comparing. Me too. Me too. My bad. Last question, ladies and gentlemen, and then we're going to sign off. The myokine irisin. Good one. So myokines, again, reemphasize. Every time you contract your muscle, lift the weight, you're releasing 500, 600. There have been almost 600 of these myokines that have been studied to be released. One of them is called irisin. One is called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. One is called follistatin. One is called myostatin. You can go on and on and on and on. The whole point is that this muscle contraction is releasing good things to keep your rest of your body healthy. Cool. All right. So the myokine irisin is primarily known for which metabolic function? So you can impress your friends at your next gathering if you know this answer. Stimulating the browning of white adipose tissue, which increases thermogenesis and calorie burning. Directly synthesizing ATP with the muscle fibers during heavy lifting. C, increasing the storage of white adipose tissue to protect against cold exposure. This sounds so funny. D, inhibiting the brain's ability to secrete a new synapses to conserve energy for the muscles. Let's see. Anybody got the answer to that? Yes. And so the majority of fat that we have around our center, the answer is going to be A. The majority of the fat we have around our center is white fat. The fat we have on our back is brown fat. Remember when they talked about these cold plunges. Athletes getting these cold plunges. They're trying to stimulate the brown fat because the brown fat is thermogenic. It means that it helps you burn calories. It means that it helps get rid of the white fat, right? So going into very, very cold showers, I used to talk about it as well. You get in and you get up in the morning and take a very, very cold shower, which is very difficult for even me to do, but especially in the wintertime, taking a cold shower, let it hit your back, stimulate that brown fat to get more thermogenesis. Yeah. But this particular thing that irisin, that's a myokine released by the muscle, does exactly that. It turns that white fat, the bad inflammatory fat inside your abdominal cavity, that visceral fat, that fat on the outside, that's white fat. It turns that white fat into brown fat. And that brown fat then begins to help you along with your muscle to burn more calories. How sweet is that? How sweet is that? That is too cool. All right. Let's see. I think that was my last question. 12 out of 12. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I had a good time today. If you all had a good time, just, just tell me what you learned today. I always ask this at the end of every webinar. Learn if you learn one new thing, just let me know that you learned one new thing because that motivates me to teach you more. All right. But if you learn something new, just put it in the chat box so I can say you learned something new. Okay. And I'm still laughing at that joke. Somebody says, like, I have a hard time being compared to a mouse, relating to mouse studies. All right. Very good. What turns white to brown? Okay. I always learn something. Yes, I learned. Great. I appreciate it, everybody. I appreciate it very much. And don't forget to bring more people to next week. This is free. And again, this research is something that you're not going to get from your doctor. Those of you who are statin drugs, I bet you didn't know that this taking this may help you. Some some people out there know that this fiber helps them. And if you let me just kind of give you one word of caution before I let you go. If you got high cholesterol and you're taking statin drugs and you're saying, I'm going to listen to Dr. Duncan, I'm going to take this as well, please, please, please check things out and tell your doctor because you can drop your cholesterol too low. Ever heard of that? Yeah, you can drop it too low. We don't want to drop it too low because too low of cholesterol is also bad because all our brain cells are made of cholesterol. All our cells in our body the walls are made of cholesterol. So if we drop our cholesterol too low, we don't have cholesterol, and we draw it all out of our blood. And what does our brain cells cover with? Our brain cells don't have any protection. And so the brain cells are exposed to other things, other cytokines and things of that nature. So, yeah, we can get some problems. All right. So that's just a plea to check with your doctor. Say, Doc, I'm going to try this thing I heard about. I'm going to try some psyllium husk. Have you heard psyllium husk from my? Have you ever heard of that, Doc? They're going to say, no. What are you talking about? I'm going to try some of this stuff from my cholesterol. But then, can you check my cholesterol again in about a couple of weeks or a month to see how it's going? Don't just take both of them all the time, okay? Get it checked out. Ladies and gentlemen, had a great time. See y'all next time. Bye bye.